Hello and welcome to Collider Video's Top 10 Worst Video Game Movies of All Time. I'm Wendy Lee, this is John Campia, and that's Mark Ellis.
You know, video games rake in tens of billions of dollars worldwide every year. They have heroic characters, engaging storylines, and occasionally sticky grenades.
The problem is it never works out. There are three rules in life, ladies and gentlemen. Death, taxes, all video game movies suck.
What about Mortal Kombat?
Most video game movies mostly suck.
So we trudge through the worst of the worst to bring you the bottom of the barrel in video game flicks.
So here are the top 10 worst video game movies, starting off at number 10, House of the Dead. A group of partygoers gets what most ravers deserve, a zombie attack on a creepy island. A small band of survivors must escape the undead and get off the island alive. Released in 2003, House of the Dead is the first but not the last entry on this list for director Uwe Boll.
And I wanted this movie to work so bad because I loved House of the Dead. The video game is my favorite game for Sega Saturn. And you see this movie, and back in 2003, zombie franchises weren't available on every street corner like they are now. It really had potential, and the movie totally ruined it.
This movie could have worked. You have the most simple of premises. An island, a group of partiers, guns and zombies. What else do you need? And yet they found a masterful way to ruin it. Who else loves to party at raves in the middle of the afternoon? And everybody knows that secret illegal raves are sponsored by Sega. Because when you get there at that rave scene, the giant Sega board, this movie holds the distinct privilege of holding a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes. And you're right, this isn't the last time we're going to see Uwe Boll on this list.
I think it's safe to say, hey kids, if you're at a party with glow sticks, get the hell out of there.
At number 9, Hitman. All of Eastern Europe is hell-bent on killing Agent 47. He has to find out who set him up and to get in bed with a traumatized woman. Tough, horny, and bold. 2015's Hitman Agent 47 wasn't much better, but the original Hitman could make our worst 10.
This is one of those few video game movies where you actually maybe have something that resembles a story premise that you could build off of. Add to that, you got in star power like Timothy Olyphant. You had the perfect mixture. Everything was set up for success, right?
Yeah, you would think so, and this is even worse than Hitman Agent 47. The guy is tough, horny, and bald. I'm working on the third one of those things. This movie had a great premise, genetically engineered assassins into something intriguing, and what it did instead is it had sex and violence in there just for the sake of having sex and violence.
It was thin, it was shallow, it was weak, all much like his hairline.
Number 8, In the Name of the King. The head shaving continues with this dungeon siege tale. Farmer must rescue his wife and avenge his son against an evil warlord. Its stars were as bright as its box office was dim.
And this could have worked. It was a fun fantasy with Jason Statham wielding a sword. I'm totally buying into that, but it turned into a contest to see who could ruin their career more, Ray Liotta or Burt Reynolds.
There is a great magic in the air. The magic, how does Uwe Boll continuously get decent actors to appear in his movie? Ray Liotta, like the whole time he's just trying to talk, stop yourself and talking like this. Like it was just crazy. You had, again, like in one of the previous films, you had premise and opportunity, talent added to it, and yet they just found a way to just sink it in this deep mire of I don't give a flying F the entire time.
If you want to see more Uwe Boll, and I think you do, you can see part 2 and part 3. He's directed those as well.
Number 7, Doom. Before The Rock became franchise Viagra, he starred in a flaccid attempt to please the fans of the game that redefined the first-person shooter. Space Marines are called in to squash a security breach. What they find is that humans injected with alien DNA can be formidable opponents.
You got a star like The Rock. You had undeniably, a few years ago, it's different now, but a few years ago, Doom was the name in first-person shooters. And you had the first movie that was even going to attempt to shoot the movie in the first-person shooter style. Everything's there to work, right?
I hear Space Marines, and I think this could be the next Aliens. Doom is a game about going to hell, and this movie pretty much is hell for 2 hours, and it's got one of the worst twists in history that ruins what could have been a great hero.
Even Carl Urban's addition to this movie could not help it. That's how bad it was.
Number 6, Blood Rain. Growing up is hard, especially when your daddy is an evil vampire. The daughter, a half-human, half-bloodsucker, teams up with a team of Dracula hunters to kill her old man. Its 4% on Rotten Tomatoes stands as the lowest movie of actor Ben Kingsley's career.
Uwe Boll strikes again, ladies and gentlemen. He's back, and he's ruining more careers. Michael Madsen. Ben Kingsley is actually in this movie. Michelle Rodriguez, and then Miss Loken from Terminator 3. John, I'm amazed at how many times vampire movies get bad, and this might be the worst of the bunch.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny because I was actually in Toronto once with Uwe Boll, and he told this incredible story about Michael Madsen, complaining that every single day he would show up to set, Michael Madsen was already there, drunk out of his mind. And when you watch the movie again after hearing Uwe Boll tell that story, you totally see it. At first you think, is the character supposed to be like this? No, he was just completely plastered because he realized what the other actors didn't. I'm in an Uwe Boll movie, man, whatever. And then he'd show up on set and kind of kill whatever buzz they had going on.
There's a Michael Madsen drinking game to play during Blood Rain. Just drink the whole movie. A lot.
Number 5, Max Payne. The mob underworld and the supernatural team up to fart in the face of Max. Pretty much everyone he's ever met has been murdered, so he has nothing else to do but seek revenge. Luckily, Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis can forget about it and get high with a talking bear.
Actors like Donald Lowe, Chris O'Donnell, come along with Mark Wahlberg, Mila Kunis. Again, a promising property. Decent actors involved, crime noir possibilities with all these different things you can do, and yet they just seemed, this is one of those movies that seemed to me like they almost purposefully set out to make something as bad as they could possibly make it. I don't know how you make something this terrible.
And it's one of the best examples of fans of a game who love that storyline being so let down by, you guessed it, John Moore was involved in this movie. He's also partially responsible for Die Hard 5. It's no surprise, but it is a bummer how bad this flick is.
Number 4, Street Fighter. Guile recruits an international cast of badasses to rescue hostages from the evil M. Bison. It couldn't capitalize on its brand name or star Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it was a lump of coal during the Christmas season.
And coming on the heels of Time Cop, for a huge Van Damme fan as a kid, this was
always
such
with Time Cop with
a
you.
letdown. If I could go back in time, I would stop this movie from ever getting made. I mean, you have a cast of circus freaks going up against Gomez Adams. It doesn't make sense. Street Fighter 2, especially the Turbo Edition, was one of my favorite games in my youth, and I don't even know if I ever made it through this movie once.
But let's call spade a spade. This is one of those movies that didn't have to be a great movie. Everybody could have accepted and been fine with and had fun with a mindless kind of fun punch 'em knock 'em out game, but they took it to another level of awful, and they just kept sinking in that pit of awful. The only thing that almost made me want to keep this movie off the list was the equally as bad Street Fighter: The Legend of Kung Lee, which arguably might have been able to have a spot on this list as well.
Sorry, we'll get you next time.
Number 3, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. After a thrilling defense of Earth in the first Mortal Kombat, our gaggle of combatants must stop Shao Kahn from sneaking through a portal and conquering our realm. Most video game movies are bad, and all the sequels are even worse.
Yeah, and this thing proves it more than anything else. Look, all video game movies are bad, but you can just once in a while maybe find a movie that's really, really bad, but it holds a special place in your heart, and for whatever reason, you have a lot of fun with it, and it's dear to you, and you love it, and Mortal Kombat is that kind of movie for somebody like me. Oh, I acknowledge it's bad and everything, but we loved it. So it was with some very naive anticipation, we'll call it, that I look forward to the sequel, and it's like they kept all the bad and got rid of all the fun and just left with something that was rotting on your doorstep.
My face is red all around. One, because I'm a little embarrassed at how much I do love the first Mortal Kombat, how it felt like March Madness in Outworld with more violence. And I'm embarrassed about the second one because I paid opening night to see that. And you know when the New Line Cinema logo came in? The theater, I yelled at the top of my lungs, Mortal Kombat! The rest of the movie, there was silence. You could hear a pin drop even afterwards on the car ride home.
At least you gave everybody one thing to cheer about.
Number 2, Double Dragon. In post-apocalyptic California, brothers Billy and Jimmy Lee must rescue their personal trainer from the clutches of the Terminator 2 villain Robert Patrick. It currently ranks 8% on Rotten Tomato, begging the question, who liked this movie?
I don't think any Asian people did because it's such a disgrace. What a slap in the face it is. Because who do we cast as Billy and Jimmy Lee, these Asian superheroes? Scott Wolf and Mark Dacascos. I mean, this thing is an embarrassment from start to finish. The biggest problem with this movie is actually Robert Patrick as the villain, because as great as he was in Terminator 2, he's just so ridiculously Tommy Lee Jones and Batman Forever-y in Double Dragon.
Look, I, generally speaking, don't have a problem with changing ethnicity or background characters, whatever. But if you're still going to call them them Lee. Come on. Change their last name to Brown or something. But look, let's call it what it is. That was the least of the problems of this movie. You're right. Robert Patrick, who we're used to seeing just shine in everything that he does, it was like, what was going on here? Clearly, he knew what he was in for. He knew he had a terrible product that he was working with. There was nothing he was going to do to make this any better. And even Alyssa Milano couldn't come along and save this thing. And Alyssa can save anything, just not this apparently.
Number 1, Super Mario Brothers. The greatest video game of all time's got a movie, and it's such a toilet clogger, not even 2 super plumbers could fix it. Mario and Luigi must rescue the princess from King Koopa, then hop in their carts and get the hell out of this flick ASAP.
Now, if you thought about it, just a couple years before the unfortunate passing of the great Bob Hoskins, and you just hear, okay, we got a new video game movie coming. It's going to star Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo, and Dennis Hopper are going to be in it. And it's going to be based on Mario. Hopper's going to play Koopa. I mean, what are you thinking at that point?
I'm thinking, yes, I love Super Mario Brothers. Make this movie. And wow. I mean, you talk about the all-time letdown. Super Mario Brothers may not have been the best source material to make a movie out of, but it's the most popular video game of all time, so why not take a crack at it? Hoskins, Leguizamo, Hopper, they all got a big scar in their careers because of Super Mario Brothers. And I don't know, I didn't think anything could be more painful in this universe than watching my mom play Super Mario Brothers. She just runs into a Koopa as soon as she starts, has no idea. That was more competent than how this movie played out.
Now, I don't know if this is the same for you, but for me personally, the reason this would be number 1 for me is not because it actually is truly the worst of all the video game movies, but when you weigh into it, the amount of disappointment, the amount of belovedness of the property itself, and then how truly awful the movie was. I just can't think of anything else that deserves to be the number 1 spot, whether it's because of its own poor quality or because of the expectations or the potential that it had or the cast that it had, whatever. There are just so many things that go into making this the number 1 on this list.
And Nintendo became like a whipped dog after this movie came out. They didn't want to license any of their properties for any movie ever again. Luckily, we got Wreck-It Ralph finally, and Nintendo was like, okay, we can let Mario pop into this a little bit. Hopefully we see more from that Italian plumber in the future.
We get asked a lot on this show, why have we not seen a Legend of Zelda movie? The reason? Super Mario Brothers 1993, that is still the reason.
And there you have it, the top 10 worst video game movies of all time.
We hope our suffering was your enjoyment. So right now, head to the comments section and let us know, what do you think is the worst video game flick of all time?
And listen, while you're here, why don't you take a second and subscribe to our YouTube channel? It'll keep you up to date on all the daily movie news and our special editorial videos like this one right here. So for Mark Ellis, Wendy Lee Zaney, and myself, John Campia, we'll see you next time. Hadouken!